Business partnerships and why I don't like them. In this video, I'm going to give you 8 reasons why I do not like and do not recommend business partnerships. Now, in the past 15 years, I've had business partnerships with both entrepreneurs and large corporations. And so in this video, I'm going to tell you a little bit about what I learned. And if you have a business partnership, I'm going to tell you a couple of things that you can do to make sure that they end up a little bit better for you. Let's go. So how do business partnerships typically work? You have a great idea, you're an entrepreneur, you came up with a wonderful idea, but you might not have the capital to execute it yourself. So you think to yourself, you know what, while the idea is great, it may work, it may not work. Let me sort of split the risk with somebody. And so you go to your friend, or you go to your partner, or a family member, or an acquaintance, and you say, listen, I have this amazing idea, hear me out, let's do it together. Typically, it will be a person that has some sort of skills that you lack. So that person hears your idea, loves the idea, and you guys come up and say, you know what, let's do it. Let's start this partnership, but since we really don't have capital, how about we just each get some equity, everybody gets a bit of shares, and we start doing it. Great, so now you have a partnership. But here are some things you need to know. Number 1, everyone has a dark side. You see, when you're just beginning your partnership, typically you and your partner sit down, you make budgets, you make forecasts, you're all very optimistic and you're very excited about the prospect of this future company that you're creating. Typically in this situation, most people are rational, they're normal, they're excited, they seem like great business partners. But a year passes, 2 years pass, and you see that you're not really hitting the numbers that you're supposed to be hitting. You're not making the revenues. You don't have the amount of clients. You're not spending the kind of money that you were supposed to be spending. And that's when usually people start to point fingers at each other. And at that point, that rational, happy, excited partner that you thought that you work with can suddenly become almost unbearable. He starts saying, well, listen, it was your idea, it was your fault. Why do we have to work so much and only get half the revenue, half the results that we were planning? How come we're not able to take money out of the company to take those vacations that we were planning to take? Things turn negative when things are not turning out to be as planned. And that's when the dark side of people comes out. So here's my problem. Typically, the person that you start the partnership with is not the same person that you're working with after some time, after things turn sour, after things are not working as great. And that's a very big problem. So make sure you know the person that you're starting a partnership with very, very, very well. And by that, I mean not only their good side, you need to know how they react under stress, how they act under stress, and how they are when things are not that great. That's very, very important. Number 2, a very expensive skill. By that I mean that when you are only starting your partnership, you would typically like to attract people that have some skills that you don't. And since you don't really have capital to pay them, you don't have money to pay them, you begin handing out shares. And those are some of the most expensive shares you will ever hand out. You see, even I had the kind of experience where we started the company and we needed a website, we needed a logo. And we didn't have money to pay for the guy that would make the logo. So you come to the guy and you say, well, how about I give you 5-10% of my company, you're gonna make us the logo. Great at first, but if your company really starts to work well, if you really hit it off and the money starts coming, that logo guy may become a millionaire just for making a logo once. He doesn't have any other skills for when your business develops, but he still has those 5-10% shares, so it's very, very expensive. In my opinion, if you would like to hand out shares, you need to think about 3 things. Only 3 people need to have shares. Number 1, it's somebody that has a very rare skill, a skill that you cannot typically find in the market. Number 2, it's somebody that is like a strategic partner, somebody that can open doors for you that you can't, or at least do it a lot quicker for you. And number 3, it's somebody that can provide you finances, a steady cash flow. That kind of person will, keep the engines running, and they deserve equity. Everybody else, you should just pay cash because you will save a boatload of money if you just find the money to pay them in the beginning instead of giving them equity. Number 3 is full dependency versus decency. You see, typically when you start a partnership, you also delegate different parts of the business between the partners. So you deal with one thing, I'll deal with the other thing, we can get more done. And one of the most common things that happen is that when people divide those parts, they only deal with their part. So they're not very aware about what their partner is doing. Let me give you an example. I've had a business partnership where my partner was handling the supply side, so the buy side, and I was handling the sell side, so I was dealing with the clients. And I didn't really get involved in that world. He had the contacts in Asia, in the US, and I had all the sales contacts here. He did his thing, I did my thing. Everything was great until we had one deal that went terribly wrong, in my opinion. I made a great sale to an international hotel chain. It was quite a large deal, about I think 30,000 euros worth of product that we sold. And at some point, my partner comes to me and says, you know what? I think that the company would be better if you would not be a part of it. I don't know why. To this day, I don't know why that happened. I was pretty shocked. But the point was that he said, if you want your client to get the products, then you're going to step out of the company. At that point, and not at that point, I mean, to me, to this day, my name, my reputation, the image, the way people talk about me, to me is more important than money. So I had no choice. I had to step out of the company. At least the client got their product, my partner got paid, and I got a very, very good lesson in life about how not to do things. So if you have a partner, make sure that it's fine to delegate, split the task, but make sure you know what they're doing. Make sure you know all the suppliers, you know the partners, you know the company where you buy from, you know all the whole supply chain, you know the clients that you sell to. Basically, it's fine to delegate, but each one of you has to be aware of everything that's going on in the company. The best way to do it is if you have some sort of software where you guys upload all the contacts, all the partners you work with, people you buy from, people you sell to, then at least it's transparent and you both have access to it, and you never have a situation like I had when I had to just, leave the company to save face. Number 4 is called excuse me, miss. Now, they don't teach you this in business school, but very often when you begin a partnership, you end up being in business not just with that person, but also with their family. And at some point, it's really the member of the family, their spouse or their parents or whoever it is, they're the ones calling the shots. So in reality, you think you're in business with one person, but you're in business with somebody totally, totally different who you don't even know. Again, I had this situation where we had to make a very hard decision about our business. So I told my partner, should we do A or B? This is my thoughts. He said, I need time to think, which is fair enough. But a couple weeks later, we went to dinner with the whole family, me, my partner, and our wives. And his wife started saying, listen, about this situation that you had, I thought that you should go with that option. I think it's better for everybody. And so I told my husband that this is what you should do. I was shocked. I mean, he didn't tell me that he couldn't make that decision himself. He told me he just needed time. But it turns out that it wasn't even him who was calling the shots. It was his wife that was making all the big decisions. Okay, that's fine if you want to go that way, but it puts me in a really awkward situation because I don't know that person. I don't know what motivates them. I don't know why they make a certain decision. And so very often you need to know the person who you're doing business with and their immediate family, or at least find out who's pulling the strings. Another situation which can arise, God forbid something happens to your partner, somebody will inherit those shares, whether it's their children who might not even be 18 yet, whether it's their spouse. Make sure you talk about this in the beginning and you try to separate ownership, like just having the shares, from voting rights, which actually have a say in how the company works. Because if you end up giving away shares to somebody that you've never even met or wasn't part of the company, it's fine that they have the ownership, they deserve that, but that you don't lose the voting rights or that you don't lose the rights to run your company. Very, very important. Number 5, take me for who you are. Now, this is another concept. When you start a company with your partner, you're one body. Legally, you're one company. And so very often you have to be legally responsible for the different kind of shit that your partners pull. I mean, I've had situations where a partner would take money out of the company, put weird money into the company, give loans, take loans, give loans to the company, give loans to other company, paying bills belonging to other companies for some reason, and then rerouting that money back into our company, buying gifts to their girlfriends, their wives, going for really questionable dinners with really questionable people. And I had to just sit and watch it because we had a business together. It was pretty good business. And I just sit and watch it, and there's nothing I can do. I know that I am too responsible for all those transactions, because in the end of the day, when the regulator controls or looks at your annual report and they seize those transactions, you can't say, well, you know, I know nothing about it, this is my partner. No, you're both responsible. And so if you choose a partner, make sure that you guys agree that you don't do any of this kind of dirty business stuff within the company, because all of you should be responsible for what you do and for what the other does. So as long as you talk about it and you say what's acceptable, what isn't, it's going to work. If your partner does start doing really funny stuff, you should stop that right away. Number 6, the 0-0 deal. Now, what I call a 0-0 deal is a 50-50 partnership between you and your partner. And not only 50-50, it could also be just an equal partnership where everybody has 25% shares, for example. Why that is because it's the kind of partnership where you get 0 work done and 0 results when you have a disagreement, or when you think differently than your partner. Because nobody can really make a final decision. So I really don't like those kind of partnerships. I know it's very difficult when you're just starting off with your partner and you have no capital and you just have an idea to justify why you guys shouldn't be equal partners. But trust me, it's better to do at least a 51-49 kind of relationship. You can have the 51% or give your partner 51% if you don't want the responsibility, but at least there's a tiebreaker there. Now, if you can't avoid a situation with a 50-50 deal, you have to have it. Make sure that you guys select one person. It can be a lawyer, it could be a professional business consultant, who will serve as your tiebreaker. So if you reach a situation where you think differently and you can't make a decision, you call that person, and that person will make a binding final decision on which direction you should go. Otherwise, you just have stalemate and you're moving nowhere. Number 7, the company card. Now, what I mean by the company card, and I won't get too much into it, but now what I talked about before was really more for relationships and partnerships that you have with an individual. But if you have a partnership with a very large corporation, as I once had, I sold part of my business to a very large company, then it's a whole different ballgame. And it's a very, very tough situation. But here are some things that you need to watch out for if you do this partnership. Number 1, just because you're in doesn't mean you're in. What I mean by that is, when I started the partnership with a very large corporation, I thought that's it. That's my access to the big money. They're going to open a bunch of doors for me. We're going to develop and open new points very, very quickly. I'm now part of this large corporation. Things are, I've made it. That's it. That's not how it works. When you make a partnership with a big corporation, they will typically tell you that you have to prove yourself first. And so before you get access to the big bucks, this big budgets, and they open all these doors, they say, first, prove on a small scale that your business is worth it. And so what you really end up with is you're still running the same small business you were running before, but now you gave away a large part of your equity and you gave away a large part of your independence in decision making. So you really are far worse off than you started, because you still need to reach a level where they open up to you, but you already lost your independence. Number 2 is you need either a very, very good legal team, or you need to really know your shit with contracts, because the contracts you sign with the large corporations are this thick. They have every little detail written in them, and if you want to protect yourself from what may potentially happen in the future, you have to really know this contract. You have to understand every point in it, and you have to make sure that it has some points to protect you. Number 3, it's a continuation of number 2, is you need a shareholders agreement. I'm going to talk about the shareholders agreement a little bit in more detail later on, but you need a shareholders agreement. The 5th thing is it's all about the money. If you think that you get into a partnership with a large corporation because they like the kind of person you are, or they love your idea, or they share your vision for the future, you're totally mistaken. Typically, the only reason they do a partnership with you is because you're a strategic fit for their company. They see some sort of value in your company that can increase value or shareholder value to their mother company. And you better make sure the strategic fit stays like that throughout the partnership, because as soon as you lose touch, your numbers go down, or as soon as you no longer become a strategic fit for them, they will take the wins out of your sales real quick. Trust me, it happens. If you think that this large partner you got gives a shit about you, understand that they really don't. They don't give a shit about you. When they start giving a shit about you is when things go wrong, when you're no longer performing. Then you'll begin getting emails in your inbox saying that we don't really see this partnership viable. We don't really think that we need it anymore, and you know, here's what we think we should do. So they only really care about you in the beginning and in the end. It's just how it works. Now, the last thing about partnerships is what's called the SHA, the shareholders agreement. It's probably the most important points from all of them. And the SHA, what the SHA really is, and you know, not a lot of people do it, but it's the conversation that all partners should have in the beginning when they start, but they don't. It's sort of the legal document of that conversation. It's talking about everything that could potentially happen, both good and bad, to the company, to any of the partners, and it's setting a certain amount of rules. Today, when you start off, that if this and this happens, this is how we act. It's a lot better to do it before you start the business than after, when you're already successful or not successful. The shareholders agreement typically names the board members. It talks about how many board members or how much percentage of equity is needed to make any large decisions within the company, changing the bylaws, changing the direction of the company. So that's very, very important. It talks about the valuation of the company. It talks about what happens if I as a partner or you as a partner decide to quit. Who has the right to buy your shares? For what price can that person buy your shares? It has to do with what if somebody makes us an offer and wants to buy both of us out? What's the valuation that we go with? How much are we going to sell for? It talks about if I no longer want to be in business and I just want to walk away, what happens then? It talks about what if the business doesn't go, we need to liquidate it and declare bankruptcy. How do we share the assets? Exactly what to do. So you see, that's why I'm saying that it's the kind of conversation that nobody likes to have in the beginning. It's kind of like, you know, talking about a wedding or naming your kids on the first date. But it's super critical for any partnership that I've seen that worked. They all had a shareholders agreement. Now, again, to be honest, to really defend a shareholders agreement, you need to be able to afford good lawyers later on as well. But if you don't have it, then it's a completely lost cause. Then we're going to do a separate video about shareholders agreement where I'm going to show you exactly all the major points that you need to put in it. But until then, know that you really, really need a shareholders agreement. So if I wasn't clear enough, I do not love partnerships. I've had exactly one partnership that worked very, very well for me. It's still going. We have a great business with my best friend. But, you know, that's a partnership that's been over 10 years in the making. We know each other. We know the flaws. We know the good things. We know how each reacts to different situations. In terms of all other partnerships today, I would most likely avoid them and try to find money to buy services in rather than take somebody as an equity partner. So if you enjoyed the video, let us know. Comment below if you had different experiences or if you had similar experiences to what I talked about. We'd love to hear about it in the comments. Press the bell and make sure you always stay up to date with all the videos that we're putting out each week. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it.